Have you ever walked into a room and felt like something or someone was there with you? Do you believe in ghosts? Is there a way to investigate unexplained experiences? You're in the right place, for Indian River Hauntings presents Encounters with the Other Side. The Ghost Guy, Larry Lawson, is your host. With years of experience in law enforcement, he knows how to search for the truth. Stay right here as Larry and his guests from around the world discuss paranormal evidence and answer your questions about encounters with the other side.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Encounters with the Other Side. My name is Larry Lawson. I'm your host, also known as the Ghost Guy. And I really appreciate you being here today, and I'm asking you to join me on this journey, this adventure, if you will, as we search for answers to what really exists on the other side. A little bit about me, as you heard in the opening, I'm a retired law enforcement officer and educator. Carried a gun and badge for about 40 years. But my first encounter with the other side actually came in 1980 in the Dade County Jail, where I was a young corrections officer. And I observed somebody walking down one of the cell blocks, and they suddenly disappeared. And that was my introduction to this world. And over the years, interesting things little happened. But it wasn't until about 11, 12 years ago when my eldest son and I were in St. Augustine, and we had a very significant event in the old lighthouse there. And that caused me to decide to investigate, to find out what really does occur on the other side. My background is investigations, and I consider this to be the greatest mystery of all time. So it's my and my group's desire to try and find evidence that we could eventually give to a jury of our peers to prove the existence of the other side. Why are we here? We're here to discuss everything paranormal. My handle on it, my expertise, if you will, if you can call it that, is on ghosts. But we're here to talk about anything paranormal. Anything.
Anything, like UFOs, chupacabras, Bigfoot?
Absolutely. Cryptids, anything outside the realm, Cliff, of our
everyday physical existence?
Exactly.
Okay.
We created a group, the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, and started investigating, and that eventually led to folks really wanting to know what we were doing. So after a few tours and stuff, Indian River Hauntings was born. And that's my organization. I call it the outreach of the FBPI.
There are actually historical locations where these types of events have taken place already. Oh. So you've got you probably got a good handful of potential spots that you can go and investigate with a group.
Cliff, history is everything. History is everything. So everything we do is based on history. So we not only teach or talk about the paranormal, we teach about the history of our area too. You can't have one without the other.
No, you'll have historical events that could lead to paranormal activity.
And that's happened on many, many occasions. In fact, some of our tours and our events, we've had things happen. If anybody's interested in finding out what we're doing, you could go to www.indianriverhauntings.com. Take a look at our schedule and join us, because it's educational as well as a little bit fun.
It'd be a great event to take a couple of folks from the office with you and go on one of these tours.
We can arrange that, Cliff. We
can
arrange it, absolutely.
I've seen this stuff on TV, and I thought, man, there's got to be a way that folks can go and attend something like this, and now there is.
Well, there is, and we try to give folks a realistic view of what the paranormal is and what it's not.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of things on TV that makes it look a little different than it really is in reality.
Oh, yes.
For example, our actual paranormal investigations that we do as a team, you see that on TV, and it's very, very exciting. It's things happening within 15 minutes. I equate that to a police stakeout. You see that in the movies, or you see that on TV, and wow, bang, bang, shoot them up. Adrenaline. Truth of the matter is, very boring for hours and hours.
Okay.
With 30 seconds of adrenaline pumping excitement. That's the reality of it.
Whoa.
So that's what we talk about.
Patience.
It's like fishing. In fact, one of the things that I talk about when I discuss the paranormal with folks, paranormal investigations like fishing.
Yeah.
And the evidence we get is like fishing. Sometimes they're biting, sometimes they're not. And as the show goes on and folks call in, we talk, you're going to see how we react and how we treat evidence and things that we may be in contact with. And
So maybe things really do go bump in the night, and it really means something. And maybe, well, once we get inside and see what's going on the other side, as far as what we can access, we can access. But there is a thrill to it. Is there any danger to it?
There can be, and hopefully that's a topic we're going to discuss on this as time goes on. There's dangers to everything, and you just got to be careful. And I'm really anxious to talk to all of you folks out there listening. Please call in with your questions, your thoughts, your experiences, and let's talk. Let's learn from each other. And that reminds me, I've got a guest coming on now that I'm very excited to bring on, a good friend of mine, Mr. Ike J Enzy. Now, like myself, Ike is a retired law enforcement officer. He began his career as I did, a correctional officer, went road deputy, sergeant, investigator for the state prosecutor's office, lieutenant, and his career culminated after 27 years as a chief of police. Ike was born in Bavaria, Germany. Yeah, he's from Germany and has lived here since he was a child, but lived for a while in a haunted 200-year-old farmhouse before he settled in New Mexico. During his law enforcement career, he has dealt with calls for service and did investigations that have dealt with the paranormal, ranging from animal mutilations, UFOs, tree people, which I'm going to ask you about in just a few minutes, Ike, if you're listening, disembodied voices, occult rituals, and of course, ghosts. Ike also hosts a YouTube show that I want to mention, IDK Paranormal. He hosts with his daughter, Christine, who serves our country in the National Guard right now. So with that, I'd like to introduce my guest, my friend, to the very first show, Encounters with the Other Side, Mr. Ike Enzy. Ike, you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me, Larry?
I sure can. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me on your show.
Well, it's exciting to have you on the first one that we've done here because, here I am in Florida and I deal with pirates and ghosts along those lines. You're way out there in New Mexico, a whole different geography, if you will, and anxious to kind of share our different types of experiences. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, we don't have any pirates out here that I know of.
No.
But our history in this state goes, the whole Southwest goes back as far as yours over there. And the influence over here from the Native Americans to the Spaniards when they came over in the 1500s. And then you mix in the indigenous people here. It's an interesting mix. And you get a lot of weird religious beliefs out here and customs. And they call it the land of enchantment for a reason. There's a lot of weird stuff that happens out here.
Yeah. Now, you obviously you've spent your entire adult life practically serving your community, and thank you very much for your service.
You as well.
A lot of folks in our business tend to have these types of encounters. Your thoughts on why that occurs? I have mine, but I'd like to hear yours first. Why do we run into encounters with the other side?
My thoughts are, as a law enforcement officer, one of your biggest fears is you getting hurt on the job or getting killed on the job. So your senses are always heightened and you're always watching your back. As soon as you go to 10-8, as soon as you go to work, that's on your mind every day. There's a reason you wear body armor. There's not very many jobs where you leave in the morning and put on body armor and you're wearing it for a reason. So your senses are very heightened. So I think you're much more aware. Not that other people can't reach that. I know a lot of other people that aren't in law enforcement that are in tune with this kind of thing. But I think police in general, much more than anybody else. You know as well as I do, if you arrive on scene, it doesn't even matter if it's a car crash. You're watching your back. It's just a simple car crash, but what caused it? Is there anybody else involved? Is there drugs involved? I mean, you're always wondering about these things, so you're always aware of your surroundings continuously, and I think that's how you catch things.
And probably now, these days, more than any time in our history, are we worried about things like that? What about firefighters, paramedics?
Well, they have a mission also, but their mission is preserve life, and save life. And then they rely on us as police officers to keep them safe on scene. For the most part, I mean, yes, paramedics and firefighters have gotten hurt on the job. It happens, but it's really our job as police officers to keep those folks safe while they're doing their job. So I think, law enforcement in general it's a very high stress job, as you know, and you're constantly wondering about things and looking at things and checking out people. I mean, as well as I, even once you retire,
Yeah,
when you go to a restaurant, where do you sit? You sit in the corner.
Back to the wall, right?
You just can't get over that. You're always on guard. So
always watching. Yeah, it's very, 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 very true. You're from Germany originally.
Yeah.
And I know you've told me the story before, but I'd like you to share it before we take a quick break here. The house you lived in Bavaria. Interesting story, and I remember one story in particular. I'll let you run with it, but quite interesting. Can you share?
There was many things that happened. I mean, it was a 200-plus-year-old house in Germany, especially Bavaria. All the houses are made out of brick, and the walls are the size of castle walls. Just huge places. And the barns are attached to the house to keep the animals warm, presumably, in the winter months. But there was, from the get-go, I mean, I was 5 years old when I lived there, all the way up until I was almost 16. There was continuously things happening there. I mean, we just dealt with it. I mean, even as little kids, we just knew there were certain areas we had to stay away from. It was there. There were things that would happen almost all the time at that house, and it wasn't scary. It was scary if you were by yourself, but I had three sisters, so we kind of dealt with it. But anything from animals showing up in one of the rooms in the kitchen, in the middle of the night, we had two horses and a donkey show up in our kitchen, which is almost impossible. They made it up the stairs and got into the house and into the kitchen. Nobody knows what happened. We heard some crashing going on in the middle of the night, got up, looked, and there's two horses and a donkey in the kitchen. Door handles moving, clocks stopping, just a variety of things. I think that's what really got me started, in the paranormal, because I was so young, and it's like there's something really weird going on here. Nobody can explain it. There weren't pranks involved. There wasn't jokes. It was legit. Something was happening in that place.
Did you find that over there it was a little bit more widely accepted or just anticipated when you were growing up in that culture over there, or was it like it is here, skepticism up front? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't really know, because I was fairly young at the time, and it became such a part of my life that, I didn't really, I know my friends all believed in ghosts over there, but, or spirits, but it wasn't widely talked about. That was the era when the horror movies were starting to come out, like the Amityville and The Exorcist, and I think not really sure what the culture over there believes. If they're predominantly Catholics over there, but everybody knew there's something that goes bump in the night. I mean, everybody you talk to, just like here, there's people here that don't believe in spirits or ghosts, but if you ask them privately where nobody else can hear them, they'll tell you a ghost story. They're just embarrassed to let anybody else know.
Very true. Well, we're going to take a quick break here to pay some of the bills. So I'd like to talk today about our sponsor for this show, Paradolia Brewery Company, Sebastian's funkiest award-winning brew pub. They have 16 taps of handcrafted beer brewed on site, as well as a nice selection of wine, cider, and seltzers. Paradolia serves up fresh, hearty food to satisfy those hunger pains, and they're family-friendly too. Dog lovers, your best friend can join you on the deck while you sip a pint and watch boats drift by on the river. They have live music every weekend, and you can stop by 6 days a week or look for their beer on tap along the Treasure Coast at select bars and restaurants. And let's face it, folks, beer is good. So thank you to Paradolia Brewery.
WPTV's First Alert Weather on WPSL is brought to you by Seacoast Air Conditioning. Now with a look at our forecast, here's meteorologist Katya Hall.
This afternoon, a copy and paste forecast. Highs once again in the upper 80s. Less humidity will make it feel tolerable outside. Sunny skies and low rain chances. Tomorrow through Friday, highs in the upper 80s, mainly dry with a few passing showers. Saturday, a weak front brushes by, and that could bring us a few fast-moving showers. Highs in the upper 80s and a bit breezy.
I'm WPTV First Alert Meteorologist Katya Hall for WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
At Seacoast Air Conditioning, they believe in 3 basic fundamentals: answer the phone, show up on time, and fix the problem right the first time. Seacoast Air, family owned and operated since 1982, waiting to answer your call 24/7.
Comfort crisis, don't roast, call Seacoast.
The Florida Gators travel to Kentucky to battle Wildcats at 3:30 on WSTU. The University of Miami kicks off the week Thursday night against Virginia at 7:30 on WPSL. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish host Cincinnati at 2:30 Saturday. Florida State and Syracuse follow the Irish on WPSL. 2021 NCAA football is brought to you by Hoskins, Turco, Lloyd & Lloyd, Las Brisas Mexican Restaurant in Fort Pierce, the Indian River State College Athletics Department, Nice Air, St. Lucie Draft House, Stivels of Stewart, Max Stuckey, Stewart Estate Attorney, and Seacoast Air Conditioning.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
And we are back on Encounters with the Other Side with my guest today, Mr. Ike Enzy. Ike, interesting stories. Bringing you back to the States here. You've been in New Mexico most of your life, I guess, right, since coming here. Yeah. And, once again, serving your community and our country as a law enforcement officer. And we've talked a little bit about why we seem to connect with a whole lot of it. And do you find that law enforcement officers today are a little bit more willing to discuss it than when you and I started? I know when I came on, you just didn't discuss it. You might give each other a kind of a wry look over the shoulder when something happened, but we really didn't talk about it back in those days. What about now? Do you see a difference?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, back in the old days, early 90s, you just didn't talk about anything unusual or paranormal, especially to your superior officers. Mm-hmm. You may recall the incident. I had several cattle mutilation calls I took out here in my county, which are completely unexplainable. I mean, it makes no sense at all. Not to get off on it, but these cows are, steers that are laying in the middle of nowhere with no tire tracks, no animal predation on them, with their sex organs removed, their tongue removed, one ear removed, one eye removed. It makes absolutely no sense. And as a cop, we're kind of nosy anyway. That's why we became cops. We're natural rubberneckers. We want to be there. And you look at these things and it makes no sense. You can't explain it. And I did a report and forwarded it to the sheriff, and the sheriff basically told me to knock that off. Just cut that out. There are more important fish to fry, and you don't need to concern yourself with stuff like that. And it's bizarre because one time I told the sheriff, because our sheriff's department was incredibly haunted. I mean, it was one of the best ghost stories ever. But I asked the sheriff one day, he was in a happy mood and stuff. And he was an elderly gentleman, a rancher. And I asked him one day, I said, hey, do you believe in ghosts? Because there's something going on in the sheriff's department. And he got furious with me. And he said, you mentioned that again, I'll have to re-psych you. And, as police officers, I imagine it's like that everywhere. To become a police officer, you have to take a psych. Mm-hmm. And that psych can be revoked at any given time. You can be held fit for duty. Any commander can put you up for fit for duty, and you have to get re-psyched. And if you fail it, your career's over. So that's like holding your job above your head. When the sheriff tells you, you mentioned ghosts around me again, I'm going to re-psych you. You bet your butt you're not going to talk about ghosts to him anymore. And but yes, now back to your question. Now it's a different breed of people. It's different officers now. They're more willing to talk about it. Probably the last 8 years of my career, I've routinely had officers come up to me and tell me their experiences, and then you see it on TV. You see police officers on television talk about their ghostly encounters now. Yeah. That was unheard of 15 years ago.
Yeah. Do you think that the TV shows that came out in the 90s kind of helped that a little bit, kind of opened up the doors a little bit to being more widely accepted?
Absolutely. It legitimized a lot of it, even though probably the majority of these shows are really staged and sensationalized.
Yeah.
But there's something to it. People watch them and they realize, there's something going on out there. And prior to all these shows, it was a taboo subject.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think the shows really enlightened a lot of people.
As a cop, what is probably your most significant ghost story? What's the most interesting thing that I know you've got a few, but
the one that sticks out in my head, the scariest ghost story, it's a long one, so I'm gonna just cut and make it really, really short. But I said the sheriff's department we had was haunted, and it had the last 3 hangings in the state of New Mexico. It was 3 Mexican nationals that robbed a store in the county, and they formed a posse and caught 2 of them and hanged them, and then they caught the 3rd one and hanged them. And so the place, it was just, you could feel it. Other officers could feel it. There was a rule we had. I was a nighttime sergeant. Nobody would go into that station by themselves. We'd always team up because it was just too darn scary. Because you'd literally hear cell doors slam. You'd hear faucets turn on and off. The phone would have mystery ringing. A phone would ring. You pick it up. There'd be nobody there. Lights would turn on and off. Everything you could think of would happen in this building. And I was teamed up with a new deputy who was like-minded with me, and we started kind of like, ghost busting the place. We started trying to get EVPs and just all the stuff they do on television, we tried doing the same thing. And this went on for quite a while. And I truly believe, like I said, I'm gonna make this story really short. There's a whole lot to it. But I truly believe that entity came to me in it followed me home, and it spoke to me. I mean, I got sick and I got strep, which I never get. And the strep was so severe, I went to the doctor and they put me on antibiotics. I came back, it wouldn't go away. I went back 2 days later, they put me on stronger antibiotics, it wouldn't go away. And then the 3rd time, my wife ended up rushing me to the emergency room. And this is in a span of like 3 days. And in the emergency room, they ended up giving me a steroid. And as soon as on the way home, the next day, I could feel myself getting better. And I'm sitting in my bed and I'm watching TV, I'm watching MASH. And I'm like so relieved that I can swallow again. I'm starting to feel better. And I blanked out, and I'm in the cells at the sheriff's department, and there's this bright blue light all around me. I'm standing in the cells, there's this huge bright light, and this voice, it yells in my head. It says, "Keep effing with me, and I'll show you what I can do." Mm-hmm. And by that time, my wife shakes me, and she goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Did I just fall asleep or something?" And she goes, "No, you were just staring at the TV. And I was talking to you, and you weren't even acknowledging me." I'm like, "Well, I just had the weirdest, I thought I fell asleep." Well, at the same time, my dog, Scooby, was Australian Shepherd.
Scooby.
As soon as my wife shook me awake, my dog has a seizure in the living room, which he never had before, collapsed and knocked over the Christmas tree. So there's this big crash in the living room. And my wife gets up, runs into the living room. She comes running back. She goes, "There's something wrong with Scooby." And I'm like, I can't get out of bed yet. I'm not, I'm like, just fill up a dish of water, give him some water. So I hear her go back in the kitchen and fill up a dish of water. And while she's doing that, Scooby recovers and comes back, and he's just staring at me. Another, he's right next to the bed, and he's just making eye contact with me, staring at me, which is another thing that's never happened again. But that was the most realistic, real thing that I've ever experienced, because this voice was in my head, and that's not something I would just randomly think up. I wasn't even thinking about the sheriff's department or ghosts or anything else. I was just glad I was feeling better.
Well, I've got a follow-up question on that, but we got a call on line 1 from Jerry. Jerry, you're on the air with Encounters with the Other Side. How are you?
Thank you for taking my call. I had a stroke about a year ago, so I might be kind of hard to understand. But a year after I got out of the Army, I was just on Fort Knox. I was just a short-timer. Saigon fell. And so I went back in, I re-enlisted. And I read a book in law. It was called ESP and You, the ESP and You. Mm-hmm. And the author was Hans Holzler. And he did write another book. And my question is telepathy and ESP, is that the same thing? And I'd like to listen on for double, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. Ike, did you catch most of that?
Only part of that.
Yeah, basically, he's talking about ESP, extrasensory perception, and Hans Holzer. Hans Holzer, one of the flame bearers of paranormal investigation and investigation of the paranormal, wrote that book. And the question is whether or not ESP is part of the paranormal. And my answer, and I'll get your take on it in a second, Ike, is anything outside the realm of science as we know it today can be considered paranormal. And there certainly is quite a bit of evidence saying that that does exist, and that we could go on and talk about that for hours. So I would say yes, Jerry, it is part of the paranormal. Ike, your take?
I totally agree with you. Anything above normal is paranormal, and ESP, is it real? Is it not? I've known a lot of people that are very gifted people that will convince you that there's definitely something to it. Mm-hmm. So
now,
I would,
now that goes into a whole topic with what my team does in trying to collect evidence and analyze evidence of the paranormal. And there's lots of theories. The most common theory of ghosts is it's the essence of those that have passed before us. And there's talk of possibly dimensions, as Einstein discussed in his general theory of relativity. But there's also the thought of the human mind. Is the human mind responsible for creating a lot of this? Most people will agree that while we use 100% of our brain, we only know what 20% really does. So what does the other 80% do? How much power does that have? And is that where the abilities for ESP lie? Well, there's a lot of scientists still investigating that. And sure enough, our governments did for a long time, if you remember that. So yeah, Jerry, I would say definitely ESP is part of the paranormal world, just another aspect of it. So moving right along, while you've had paranormal ghost experiences, Ike, that's not all you've had out in New Mexico in the wide open land of the land of enchantment, they call it. UFOs.
It's really, really crazy. I mean, UFOs, we've had just tons of anomalies in the sky, and especially when I was a deputy sheriff in this area, of just UFO calls. I mean, lights in the sky, and we've all seen them. And we've gone as far as calling the neighborhood. We'd have dispatch call the neighborhood Air Force Base, which is Kirtland Station, across the mountain chain from us in Albuquerque. Of course, they would always deny it. They would never know what we're talking about. But we've all seen it, and tons of calls. And what's really bizarre is just yesterday, I was just a couple of days ago, I was saying I haven't seen anything weird in the sky in a long time. And just yesterday, Christine is back for a week. And so we were shooting our bow and arrows, our compound bows outside. And I happened to look up, and I see a little white speck in the blue sky. Mm-hmm. There's some clouds about, but it's in between the clouds. And I tell Christine, I said, do you see that? So we stop what we're doing and we look up, and sure enough, there's 2, and then there's 4, and there's 6, and they just appeared. But they're so far away, they're just a tiny white speck. And, we're thinking maybe it's a balloon, a weather balloon, but it didn't look like it. And then they started moving in ways a balloon would move. If there's 5 or 6 balloons up there, they would all move the same direction. But
you would think.
All of a sudden, one would blink out and it would show up here, or it would go. And I grabbed my phone, and I got a pretty good phone, and I went to full zoom. And, all it shows is a little white speck. And since you're in full zoom, it really doesn't do it justice, because any movement is just magnified 1,000,000 times.
Sure.
But I did catch it on my phone. But that was the first time I've ever seen that in the sky here.
Now, just to give folks that are listening perspective on where you're at, you close to any military bases? I mean, Nevada's got all Area 51 and stuff. Are you close to anything like that at all?
Yeah, I think we can beat that. We've got Kirtland Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. We've got Sandia Laboratories. We've got Los Alamos Laboratories. We got Cannon Air Force Base.
Okay.
We're surrounded, with Trinity Site, where the first atomic bomb is just around the corner from us. Mm-hmm. We have there's rumors of underground tunnels.
Then how about somebody saying this is an Air Force experiment? It's an experimental aircraft. Do you have a thought on that? I mean, explaining it as being a military type of
It could be. I mean, I don't know. You know, I'm an aviation buff and know a little bit about airplanes, and there's nothing that I know of that can fly that high and move the way this is moving. Whatever this is can move in 90-degree angles, turn off and reappear, you know, in a different part of the sky almost instantly, and go back and forth and do that. So if they have that kind of technology.
Well, obviously, we've had recent disclosures from the Navy, and the Pentagon finally released documentation of what Navy pilots have seen on both the east and west coast of the U.S. I'm assuming you've seen some of those videos.
Yes.
Similar to what you've seen.
Yeah. Well, these were even smaller. They were either really, really far away. I know they were far away because we had some pretty good-sized thunderheads out there, and these things were disappearing behind the thunderhead clouds, and some of those clouds, you know, are up 30,000 feet. So whatever it was really, really high and could move really, really quick. So it didn't quite look like the tic tac, as they call it. You know, these were just tiny white specks.
Now,
that would move.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was watching a show on a gentleman on YouTube actually, who talked about the fact that he was a Navy flyer. He talked about the Tic Tacs and said it can only be one of two things. It could be a foreign country. It could, well, actually one of three things. A foreign country testing some sort of new flight system. It could be us testing a new flight system, or it could be something extraterrestrial. And his conclusion was he thinks it's us. Any opinion?
Well, it would have to be unmanned, or they've perfected artificial gravity, because we all know about G-forces and the way these things are moving. Your body wouldn't tolerate it for a second.
I would tend to agree with you, my friend, on that one. Now, along those lines too, there's a show out there, and I guess we can mention it. It's on one of the cable channels, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Have you seen that at all? That's nowhere near you, is it? I understand.
No, it's probably, I would think, 400 miles away to the northwest of us in Utah.
I've seen that show, actually, and I'm pretty skeptical with those shows, I'm going to be honest with you, but I've actually been pretty impressed with some of the things they've uncovered as far as a combination of things, not only UFOs, but also apparitions, as we call it, and also maybe some cryptids, human-animal hybrid type things. That leads me to another interesting question with you on things called skinwalkers. And that's something we don't hear about too much here in Florida, but what about out in your neck of the woods?
Well, skinwalkers is a Navajo native thing. I think all native tribes have a form of that. They just name it different things, but you know, we're probably 200 miles or 150 miles away from the Navajo reservation, but we get a lot of Navajo people in our area, and especially when I used to log. We used to log real close to the Navajo reservation, and they all believe, they have a different name for it, and I can't think of it right now. They don't call it a skinwalker, but they truly believe in that. And even their law enforcement, I got to know a lot of Navajo Rangers in different courses and classes I took. And they're actually tasked with investigating any claim of any kind of entity, whether it's a skinwalker or just something strange. They go out and have to investigate this and take it serious and do reports on it. Specifically in my area, I've never encountered a skinwalker, but I've worked with many people, including law enforcement officers from that area.
Okay. Well, what is a skinwalker? How would you describe a skinwalker?
A skinwalker is kind of like a medicine man that went bad.
Okay.
And he started dabbling into the dark side, you know, the evil side of doing good. And from what I understand, is to become a skinwalker, he would actually have to kill somebody in his family to legitimize himself to become a skinwalker. And he shapeshifts. He can usually it's a coyote. Especially in the Navajo religion, they call the coyote a trickster, and they usually turn into coyotes, but they can turn into anything, you know. But they're just bad people that can do bad things, and there's a lot of people out here that believe in that.
Have you ever seen anything? I know you've not really encountered a lot with skinwalkers yourself, but have you seen anything that would be considered half human, half animal?
I have seen things in our mountains that made no sense. You know, you catch glimpses of it, and sometimes you wonder if it's just your mind playing tricks on
Sure,
you.
well,
But we've, Christine and I have found a footprint on a hillside covered in shale, and it is incredibly steep, and it's not a hiking trail. We were just out there kind of prospecting, and I found a barefoot footprint that was about 17 inches long. You know, the classic Bigfoot footprint like you see on TV. This is out in the middle of nowhere, and the only reason this footprint existed is because it was a cedar tree and had rained a couple of days earlier, and below that cedar tree, or next to, on the shady side of that cedar tree, it was still damp. And whatever it was left that one print, and then the next step was back into the hard rock. Tried taking pictures of it, wasn't very successful, only had a cell phone. But what left a 17-inch barefoot footprint in a mountainside, 20 miles away from civilization?
sure.
Makes no sense.
Is Bigfoot an item in your neck of the woods?
Yes. We have, people for some reason think New Mexico. They think of northern Mexico, that we're all just part of the Sonora Desert, but realistically, New Mexico is probably 2/3 part of the Rocky Mountains. We have incredibly huge mountain ranges out here, and one of the largest wilderness areas around in the southern New Mexico, the Gila Wilderness. Lots of mountains, high peaks. So absolutely.
See, in this neck of the woods, the closest thing we have to that is swamp ape. Now, I personally have never seen any evidence of that, but I'm learned a long time ago in law enforcement, don't close your mind, keep it open, because you never know when the evidence is going to take you in another direction. But we have the swamp ape down here, similar type of animal, I suppose. Why do you think nobody has ever, there's documentation of people seeing ghosts. There's even photographs, whether or not you take them as real, there's photographs. Not as many with Bigfoot. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's fewer people that go out into the middle of nowhere, into the extreme wilderness, and that's probably where you're going to encounter a Bigfoot. So, the statistics, less people out in the middle of nowhere, so less calls, but there's still a lot of reports of Bigfoot sightings or Sasquatch sightings all over. I've personally never seen one, and I logged, before we got into law enforcement, I was a logger for 6 years, and I spent every day in the woods. I've never seen a Bigfoot, but we did find tracks. It was wintertime, and I was called by one of the loader operators. I just got there, and he said, check this out. And there was, once again, tracks in the snow, huge footprints. And him and I followed them for probably a quarter mile. And they went down a steep hillside, through a little creek, up a really steep mountainside covered in snow. And the stride was probably 7-8 feet apart. So if that was a hoax, why? What's the point of that?
Yeah, nobody's going to see it, and you just happened upon it. While you're working. That's an interesting point. Do you think dimensions, a theory of dimensions I mentioned earlier, has anything to do with sightings of Bigfoot, UFOs, or any of that? There's a group of there's people that feel that way now. I just wonder what you thought.
I'm starting to believe into that theory more and more, especially with ghostly encounters and UFOs, and these things slip in and out. Just like these UFOs I said earlier, can be in one spot and then in the other spot. Ghosts, EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon. Why is it sometimes you can get it, sometimes you can't? There's been places I've caught really good EVPs, and I'd go back 2 or 3 more times to the exact same spot. You spend hours there and not catching anything. I'm like, why is this thing gone all of a sudden? I'm thinking more and more there's dimensional slipping going on.
Now, EVPs, just for those that may not know what that is, electronic voice phenomenon, it's part of the area of research we do called instrumental transcommunication, and that's involving hearing a voice or hearing words, but you don't hear it with your ears, but you catch it in a recorder. And kind of the easiest way to explain that would be a dog whistle. You blow a dog whistle, and you can't hear it, but dogs can. Frequency and vibration, and the voice or what that sound is able to imprint on the recorder, but you can't hear it with your own ears. You had a really cool story, I think near one of your mines. You did one of your shows on IDK Paranormal, and you got a pretty good EVP near one of the mines, if memory serves.
Yes. Now, I always tell people, if you don't believe in the paranormal and EVPs, an EVP will quickly convince you because it's so easy to obtain. All you need is a cell phone or a recorder, and you're well on your way.
Agreed.
And so we have a lot of mining districts out here, and that's another thing. I've always felt like mining areas are very paranormal. I think it has a lot to do because it's full of minerals, lots of quartz, lots of iron, lots of limestone, stuff like that. But my daughter and I were hiking around one of our mining areas, and I had a video camera, and I was just going to document our hike. And we weren't doing anything paranormal. We were just hiking, and I was going to make a fun YouTube video of our hike. And when I turned the video camera on, it wouldn't turn on, which was bizarre because I had a brand new battery in it. So I had my cell phone recorder running in my pocket because I'm always looking for EVPs. So my daughter says, change the battery and restart the camera. And while I do that, I catch this perfect clear EVP that we didn't hear at the time. I heard it much later that day when I got home, and I said, oh, my phone recorder's on, and I set the phone down and turned to play the recording, and I'm just listening to it. And there's a perfect EVP that says, help, kill me. And it's a female's voice. And that's certainly something I wouldn't have said. And certainly Christine wouldn't have said that. We were talking about the camera. In fact, it a little bit overtalks Christine when she says, put a new battery in and start it. It actually starts before she finishes talking. So we do a little research, and the town we're in nearby is Golden. And Golden was a huge mining boom town. It had 5,000 residents. There wasn't enough hotel rooms. People were sleeping just everywhere. There was brothels, I think 3 saloons. It was your classic gold rush mine town. It was the first gold strike west of the Mississippi, and they just all came out here. So you could just imagine the horror, and the hardship people felt out there, all chasing this gold. So could there be some bad stuff that happened out there to a female? Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking that's probably what we caught. And we went back to that same place 2 or 3 more times, trying to recapture the EVP and see if there's anything we can do for her. Never caught it again, but you can certainly feel the presence of something there.
Yeah.
Now, could it be a trickster? I think a lot of people hear an EVP and just assume it is what it is. I mean, could it be an entity, a bad entity that's emulating to be nice? Possibly.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier about something coming home with you, and I really wanted to kind of hit on that just a minute in our last few minutes. It came home with you. First of all, why do you think something attached itself to you? And do you take any precautions now to make sure that doesn't happen again?
I think we were very aggressive with whatever we were dealing with at the sheriff's department. We were making fun of it. We were calling it names because we assumed there was an inmate that was beat to death in one of the cells. He was intoxicated, and they put him in a drunk tank under protest, saying that he had enemies in there. And sure enough, he did, and they beat him to death. So we always assumed it was him. And being dumb and doing this, we were making fun of it. And I think we pissed him off, and I think he had enough of our shenanigans, and he followed me home. And I'm 100% convinced he followed me home. So what we do to prevent this? First of all, we don't taunt anything anymore. We treat everything with respect. If you want to talk to me, fine. If you don't, then that's good enough for us. And at the end of every session or any investigation, we make it clear, that you need to stay where you're at. You're not welcome to come home to my house. Because I'm pretty sure we brought several things home from our mining district to my house in the past. So we try not to do that.
And that speaks a lot towards not taunting like you'll see on some of the TV shows, that there's no good can come of that. And you always need to treat everything with respect. And also it goes to what Cliff was mentioning at the top of the show, was some of the dangers in it. We don't always know what this is or what's creating this entity. And if you're not careful and you don't conduct yourself appropriately, you can bring it home with you. And certainly you're always better off making a pronouncement that you can't come home with me. I know there's stories up in Gettysburg of folks reenactors coming off the battlefield and having another reenactor with them, but suddenly that reenactor was gone. There's tons of stories about things being followed home. So you learned a valuable lesson and got out of it in fairly good shape, I guess, all things considered.
Well, I do believe there are negative energies out there. I've experienced them. And in our life, as police officers, negative people draw negative people.
Mm-hmm.
You hang around a negative cop, next thing you know, everybody else is thinking negative, and it just rubs off. I'm sure that the spirits are the same way. There's bad spirits out there, and if you hang out with a negative one or invite a negative one into your life, how will it affect your life in present time?
Good point.
You want to be careful with that.
Good point. And it goes back to the question I asked also, or I mentioned at the beginning, what causes all this? Why does this occur? Well, that's what we're about, you and I, trying to figure out what the answers are to this entire mystery. What exactly is causing it? And we're both cops, both detectives. We're looking to solve this mystery, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the greatest mysteries out there.
Yeah,
we know it exists. We've experienced it. It's not a figment of our imagination. So it's kind of going to be sad if we ever solve this puzzle, because then what do we do?
We'll find another one, my friend. Now, we've got a few minutes left. We got about 3 minutes before I get into something else, but I'd like to... You told me a story once that involved tree people.
Yes.
Yeah.
This also happened when I was a deputy sheriff out here in our county.
Yeah.
And this probably happened around 2001. But suddenly we had a rash of calls, and this county's huge. It's 4,500 square miles.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd get 2 or 3 calls a night of people calling 911 saying there's people in their trees. And sometimes these people were in camouflage, and sometimes these people weren't. And at first we just thought everybody's using meth, which is likely out here. But it got to the point where we go to calls where people were actually shooting holes, through the roofs of their house to get people off their roofs, shooting into trees, trying to get people out of trees. So it started getting serious, because now you have people discharging firearms.
Sure.
And it's almost like they all communicated with each other, but these people didn't know each other, and they're 60 miles apart from each other. And it's rural, very rural out here in some of these areas, it's mountainous. And seemingly normal people would, out of nowhere, believe there's people in their trees. So I termed them tree people. I don't think they were called tree people ever before that. And so dispatch even started calling them tree people. They would tone out a tree people call because it happened so often. But this lasted maybe 7 or 8 months. And then it never happened again. So it's like they've all communicated with each other and said, all right, enough of the tree people calls. So there was something bizarre happening during a time, and I couldn't quite figure it out, that made people see other people out in their yard or up in a tree or on their roof.
And it seems a little bit too odd for it to be any sort of chemically induced story.
Because most of those people weren't using drugs.
So
they're normal, just people.
As we wind down our time together, my friend, any last thoughts you'd like to share? I'd like to talk a little bit about your YouTube channel, if you want to share that with my guests, my listeners.
Well, like you said earlier, my daughter and I have a YouTube channel I started about 1.5 years ago, and the premise of it was to have law enforcement tell their paranormal stories. It's somewhat successful. Law enforcement still doesn't want to put their face on the screen and tell a story in fear of, they still have 20 years to work, mm-hmm. and in fear somebody may see that in the future and then keep them from being promoted. But our channel is still growing. We're check us out at IDK Paranormal on YouTube. We're always doing little fun things.
Yep.
Have giveaways. We give away silver. We're big fans of silver. So we always give away silver coins or ounce of silver. So check us out.
Yeah, good. And it's a great show. So I recommend you take a look at it. Also wanted to take a second to, I also do another show on YouTube, On the Air with Indian River Hauntings, with a good friend of both Ike and I's, Chris Huff. He's in County Durham, England. He'll be on this show eventually too. Chris is going to come on and join us on this show. So check out both of those. I also want to make mention, if you are interested in joining us on one of our historical paranormal events here on the Treasure Coast, check out my website at www.indianriverhauntings.com. If you want to see what we're doing on the investigation side, you can get to us at www.paranormalfbi.com, or you can catch us on both Facebooks, Indian River Hauntings, as well as the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation. But on our website for Indian River Hauntings, www.indianriverhauntings.com, you can get our schedule of all the things that we're doing, especially this month in October. We're doing about 8 tours, and we've got 4 events, including a couple that are benefits for the community. At the Captain Hiram's, we're going to be doing one, and as well as out in Fellsmere, I've got 2. So if you're interested in joining us, we'd love to see you. We're going to learn quite a bit about our area, as well as maybe a little bit about paranormal research and investigation. So, Ike, I appreciate you joining me today for this inaugural show. I thank you with all my heart. Any final comments?
Well, thank you for having me on your show. That was awesome. I really enjoyed it.
And folks, if you do want to, if you do get a chance, visit Ike at IDK Paranormal. And I'd sure like to see you on, as well as check us out on our website. Say hi on Facebook. You can also reach me at ghostguy59@gmail.com. That's how you can reach me directly. And I want to thank Cliff Desmond for keeping me on track today for the first time in the studio.
Went by pretty fast, didn't it?
Yeah, I'm kind of watching the clock here, and I'm thinking, oh man, where did the time go? Of course, Ike tells such cool stories. It's There's a couple more I would have liked to hear, but we're going to have you back. You willing to come back, Ike?
Anytime, absolutely.
Outstanding. Yeah. Folks, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm looking forward to being back next week. I think you'll enjoy the person I'm going to have here next week. He's got a business that we're going to chat about. So until then, please be safe, take care, and we'll see you on the other side.
And we all have a story to tell, so you'll be welcome to call him in at some point as well during the show. By the way, this is WPSL Port St. Lucie. This show will be archived on YouTube probably within 24 hours. We'll have it up there for you. The side. If you'd like to join Larry for a ghost tour for one of his events, check the Indian River Hauntings website for Treasure Coast locations and be sure to follow on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Until next time.